Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the America 360 on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. More than 40 bodies were found in Rio de Janeiro's Penha favela, a day after the city's deadliest police operation targeting a major gang that has left at least 64 people dead, including 4 officers, according to local state authorities. Britain has announced $3.36 million in emergency aid to support Jamaica and the Caribbean following the devastation of Hurricane Melissa, the strongest storm ever to hit Jamaica. The packages include shelter kits, water filters, and blankets with rapid deployment of teams and a Royal Navy ship ready to aid relief efforts, according to British Foreign Minister. Mexico's Economy Minister Marcelo Ebrard and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer have agreed to continue negotiation toward a new trade deal, according to Mexico's Economy Ministry. Both sides aim to finalize an agreement before the 2026 review of the USMCA, marking a key step in strengthening bilateral economic ties. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel has said that Hurricane Melissa has caused extensive damage after making landfall on the island's southern coast overnight. He has urged residents to stay sheltered as the storm continues to batter Cuba. The United States and South Korea have agreed to keep reciprocal tariffs at 15% after a preliminary deal earlier this year. Both countries will reduce tariffs on automobiles and auto parts from 25% to 15%. Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz has warned that Hamas leaders, both political and military, will be targeted without immunity after recent Israeli airstrikes on Gaza. Katz has also banned Red Cross visits to Palestinian detainees under Israel's illegal combatants law amid ongoing ceasefire talks mediated by Qatar, Egypt, the US, and Turkey. Israel has reinstated the Gaza ceasefire after carrying out a wave of airstrikes that has killed over 100 people and targeted dozens of militant sites. According to the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF has also claimed its strikes eliminated 30 commanders in Gaza, while local hospitals and civil defense has reported heavy civilian casualties, including 35 children, according to Gaza's health ministry. The United States will reduce its military presence in Europe by suspending the rotation of a combat brigade deployed across several NATO countries, according to Romania's defense ministry. The move comes as Washington reassesses its force posture on NATO's eastern flank. Now we start with America's. The White House has confirmed that U.S. President Donald Trump will be meeting Chinese President Xi Jinping on Seoul on Thursday tomorrow, with 30th October at 11 a.m. local time. A high-stakes encounter between the world's two largest economies are on the horizon as the leaders struggle to end a grinding trade war. The sit-down comes after months of tit-for-tat escalation, Washington expanding export controls and threatening 100% tariffs on Chinese goods from November 1st, Beijing tightening rare earth curbs and deepening energy ties with Russia. Both sides signaled modest progress during recent talks in Malaysia, laying the groundwork for what will be the first in-person meeting between Trump and Xi since 2019. Officials say the November 10th deadline for a truce is looming without a deal. Tariff pressure could surge again. What began as a narrow dispute over fentanyl flows has now widened into a broad geopolitical clash, from technology and industrial dominance to food security and the rules of global trade. Allies and markets are watching closely. Now, for this discussion, we welcome David K. Johnston. He's an American author, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, David, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, how do you think what will be Trump's negotiation tactic or style, and how do you think it could influence the tomorrow's trade truce with China?
Well, in these trade talks, you have on one side a very highly educated and dedicated to long-term results leader in China with a whole team of very highly educated diplomats around him. On the other side, you have Donald Trump, a very poorly educated man who does not understand economics, even though he has a degree in it, and who does not understand very much about negotiating. Donald, has sold much of the public on he's a great negotiator, having negotiated with Donald many times over the last 37 years. He's a terrible negotiator. But each of the parties here has things that they need. The U.S. needs neodymium and other rare earth metals that have been processed like dysprosium. Neodymium was an American technology, but the George W. Bush presidency allowed the Chinese military, using fronts on Wall Street, to acquire that technology and remove it from the United States, something I wrote about at the time that it happened. Trump needs to get the Chinese to buy American soybeans. We sold $13 billion last year. So far this year, zero. He's in the weaker position because China has now acquired soybeans from Brazil, Argentina, and Australia. Trump also wants to limit the high-powered new generation computer chips that China wants. So that's the most important bargaining point he has to get things from Donald Trump. Over time, however, you can expect the Chinese will develop their own super advanced computer chips.
And what role does Trump's past approach, as you've also mentioned to tariffs and export controls, play in shaping China's strategy? Do you think they also have a game plan?
Well, yes, China takes a very long-range perspective on things. Their general view is we're here forever. So they think long-term. If you look at the building of the Three Gorges Dam the British proposed back in the mid-1960s, because of that, if sea levels rise and Shanghai disappears beneath the waves, China just moves inland. They can bring ocean-going ships 1,500 miles into their interior, something the U.S. cannot do. And so China is looking at a long game. Donald Trump is looking at a short game for quick approvals because the American economy has slowed down, and we may find out within the next few months is actually going in reverse at the moment.
And how might Trump leverage his personal relationship with Xi Jinping, even though we only know they have had few conversations, and last time they met was in 2019. Do you think he would use this for a breakthrough in tomorrow's talks, and what ways could he use this meeting to reinforce his image as a deal maker?
Well, Donald likes to promote the idea that he has these personal relationships with people, and yet if you look at what happens after his meetings with them, whether it's dictator Kim Jong-un or Putin or Xi, he actually doesn't end up with anything except some nice words. They continue to engage in the behavior that they think will best advance their countries. Trump has a very hard time understanding this because his career before he was president was one of either out negotiating someone because he had information about them they didn't know, or they had a vulnerability point, sometimes a personal vulnerability that he could exploit. And he doesn't have those things in dealing with President Xi. So my expectation is that whatever you want to regard as their personal relationship is really sort of irrelevant. China has long-term goals. They're going to stick to those. They don't need the U.S. as much as the U.S. needs China. Now, in time, the U.S. can recover from some of the problems it faces. For example, neodymium refining technology can be redeveloped in the U.S., and you'll probably see that happen over time. But in the short run, watch how the Chinese have behaved. They're building stronger trade ties in the Indo-Pacific region, and when Japan detained a Chinese fishing vessel, that's all they did was detain a Chinese fishing vessel. China cut off rare earths minerals to Japan, whose high-tech manufacturing really desperately needed them. So China has demonstrated both resolve and patience. Those are two things Trump just doesn't have, given the nature of who he is.
Thank you very much, David K. Johnston, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we stay in the region. The United States Army has confirmed it will not replace troops departing from Romania, but insists the move is not a sign of withdrawal from Europe or reduced commitment to NATO. The Army has stressed this adjustment will not affect Europe's security environment. The Romanian Defense Ministry has announced a reduction in U.S. forces, with troop levels expected to fall from about 1,700 to 900 or 1,000 troops. Officials in Bucharest have described it as a resizing aligned with new priorities under President Donald Trump's administration, which is shifting focus towards the Indo-Pacific. Despite the change, both Washington and NATO have reaffirmed that the United States remains firmly committed to NATO and Article 5, maintaining a strong presence of over 100,000 U.S. troops across Europe. Now we welcome back David K. Johnston. He's an American author, joins us live from New York. Thank you, David, for staying with us. David, as you were mentioning in our earlier discussion that, China needs U.S. needs China more than China needs U.S. But can we say the same looking at this? Does NATO and Europe need U.S. more than U.S. needs them?
Well, that's, I think, a very important long-term question here. Now, the U.S. is only reducing by half the number of soldiers in Romania. It's essentially a battalion, not even a brigade. A battalion is roughly 1,000 soldiers. So that we're going to go from 2,200 to about 1,100 soldiers in Romania. The more important question with that is, what's the signal that sends to Vladimir Putin, who has been increasingly aggressive in Europe, sending drones as well as manned military aircraft to violate the airspace of countries like Lithuania and Poland and Denmark, and engaging in menacing behaviors as part of his long-term strategy to put together a modern version of the old Soviet Union with its satellites. So the political signal here could reasonably be read as somehow signaling Putin to keep going. On the other hand, it's 1,000 soldiers. It's a drop in the bucket. And even in terms of redirecting, pivoting toward the Indo-Pacific, it's still only 1,000 soldiers.
Yes, indeed. But how might Trump frame this troop adjustment to signal continued U.S. commitment to NATO while prioritizing Indo-Pacific? And how do you think this will be viewed by Europe? But in Trump's eyes, how do you think he thinks Europe would see this move?
Well, Trump doesn't particularly care what European leaders think. He's made that repeatedly clear in statement after statement going back to his first term. I mean, he's literally talked about that the NATO is antiquated and no longer needed, which I think none of the other members of NATO would agree with. Lacking the historical knowledge of the importance of NATO and its role in blocking expansive Russian aggression, Europeans are going to certainly look at this as, is this a single issue with 1,000 soldiers, or is it part of a bigger trend of Donald Trump trying to weaken American support for Western Europe?
Right. With that, I would like to thank David K. Johnston for joining us and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. U.S. President Donald Trump has told American troops that he's prepared to send more than the National Guard into U.S. cities if needed, signaling a willingness to escalate federal intervention in Democratic-led jurisdictions facing unrest. Speaking aboard the George Washington aircraft carrier docked at the Yokosuka Naval Base near Tokyo, Trump has said that his administration was determined to ensure public safety. Later speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One en route to South Korea, Trump has confirmed he could take. Since June, Trump has deployed National Guard troops to several Democratic-led cities, including Los Angeles, Memphis, and Washington, D.C., and has sought court approval to send them to Portland and Chicago. In Los Angeles, active duty Marines were briefly deployed to protect federal property before being withdrawn. Trump has also left open the possibility of invoking the Insurrection Act, a centuries-old law allowing the president to deploy active duty troops for domestic law enforcement. Now, for this discussion, we welcome Robinder Sachdev. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Robinder Sachdev, sir, for joining us today. Good to see you. Looking at this, it seems like Trump is seeing this as a very serious or exaggeration, and how might his statements about deploying federal troops affect federal-state relations and the balance of powers once again?
Well, thank you very much. You asked very important questions. I would suggest that we, your audiences, us all in the world, should look at America today, starting with a view that there is a revolution ongoing in America. It is a revolution. We may look at, National Guards being sent here, there, MAGA policies and what Trump is doing, what policies regarding education, immigration, and all of that. We have to understand that fundamentally there is a revolution ongoing in America. One. And secondly, this revolution, according to not Trump, but many of Trump-based supporters, they say this revolution will be bloodless if the liberals and left allow. That's the big picture. So there's a revolution ongoing in America. We got to understand, the world has to understand that. Now, in this revolution which is ongoing in America, of course, one element is there that the power of the presidency has to increase. It's not about Trump. Sure, Trump is the president today, but 50 years hence, some other 20 years hence, some other president, the power of the president has to increase. That's what Trump is trying and working towards. That's what the MAGA base wants, and it's a revolution underway. So if there are any issues which may or may not relate to immigration, supposing immigration in this case, National Guards, if something is happening within the American empire, with the American mainland and other states, the president has the power to send in any level of power, be it local, be it federal, to achieve the results. So what we are seeing, and we have to really realize, the world has to understand, there's a revolution ongoing in America wherein the conservative and MAGA and Trump philosophy is expanding the powers of the president, federal, and shaping the country in their own image.
And building on that, it's very like a breath of fresh air, I would say, your answer. Good, very nice learning from you. And sir, how should U.S. balance its democratic values, or, it's known for democracy, while learning to tackle this revolution, and while learning to, or not learning, but while making sure president has the control or the safety of its citizens?
You raise a very deep question. The point is, the Trump administration in power says this is democracy. We have the majority, right? We have the legislative majority. Forget the legislative. The president has a majority of the people who voted. He's the president. So what the president says, decides, should be the way in which the nation should work. One, that throws up a weakness of democracy, by the way. In America and anywhere in the world, look, France, India, Germany, Japan, two-thirds people vote for a government, right? Or a president. One-third don't vote. Two-third vote. Of the two-third, that is about 65%, maybe 38% vote for one and 35% for the other. And the one with 38% of the vote gets to be the president. That's what democracy is. I see what is happening in America is an example of democracy. I would not say gone wrong, gone bad. No, not at all. Democracy. The ethos is deep, but that is the reality. So that's democracy as we define it today in this world. Trump has a majority as a president. So whatever decisions he takes are the ones which should be implemented.
Right. And so, sir, why do you think this revolution is happening so intensely under Trump administration? Do you think there are cracks in so-called, as you said, democracy? Let's just say it's democracy 1.0 for now.
Mm-hmm. No, American democracy is, I would beg to disagree with you. I understand your point. It's not democracy 1.0 in America. Democracy in America is probably 3.0. All nations of the world look up to American democracy. That's one. Okay, all nations in the world, let us be clear, have lower levels of democracy than America so far before Trump. It's a very honest assessment, I would say. The second reason why this is happening is that in America, there's a perception. America is no longer a melting pot. America has become a boxing ring where both sides fear each other and hate each other. The MAGA crowd, they say that the liberals, the left, the socialists, they're out to control the government, they're communists, they'll take away your homes. They're communists. The liberal side says to its base that the MAGA crowd is authoritarian, fascist. Both sides fear each other like anything and hate each other. Both sides, out of the two-thirds, one-third don't vote, two-third vote. Out of the two-third, one-third approximately, let's say the Republican side, conservative side, and one-third liberal side, socialist side, hate each other, fear each other. That's what we are seeing playing out in America today.
With that, I would like to thank Rabinder Sachdev for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, we stay in the region. A massive police operation was carried out in Rio de Janeiro to combat organized crime and drug trafficking by the powerful gang known as Comando Vermelho. This was the deadliest police raid in Rio's history, with 60 suspected gang members and 4 police officers among the 64 people killed. The bodies of at least 40 people were laid out in a square in the neighborhood of the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro. Residents have described the scenes unfolding in Rio as warlike, with shootouts between officers and armed men and buses set on fire to create barricades. The high number of casualties has been denounced by the United Nations Human Rights Office, which has said that it was horrified by the police operation. The relatives of the deceased were seen mourning at the site. Let's in fact listen into what they have said.
Só quero tirar meu filho daqui em terraça por causa de quê? Não vai dar em nada, a verdade é essa. Não vai dar em nada, porque aqui tem montão de gente chorando, mas lá fora tem montão de gente aplaudindo isso aí que eles fizeram isso aí.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Robinder Sachdev. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, sir, for staying with us. Now, does the scale of lethality in this operation by Rio de Janeiro's police indicate a failure of Brazil's public security policing and reliance on militarized policing? And as you mentioned in our previous discussion, you know how US was melting pot, now it has turned to a boxing ring. Do you think this is becoming like a similar situation to where the Brazil's police, it has to step up like this, and it's becoming like what US is becoming?
No, thank you very much, and that's so very insightful, analytical of you to kind of look at the melting pot and all. What is happening in Brazil? Of course, there is a drug problem, drug cartels, there's a crime problem. But yes, in Brazil, in the bigger picture, yes, the battle between left and right is playing out. But in Brazil, what's happening is that Rio de Janeiro, the governor of the province, is the gentleman of the right. Okay, the government of Brazil is Lula, a socialist. The governor, he would want that the government of Lula be shown in a bad light politically, right? But yes, there's a fundamental problem. So what the governor has gone in and enabled is this massive operation, which standalone is something correct, right? But there are layers of politics on that. The layers of politics are that, on the other hand, Trump is calling for Bolsonaro, who's been sent to prison, I think, for 27 years, to be released or not to be worked hard on. Lula is a socialist one. The governor here is of the right leaning. The governor here is creating situations for America to intervene. So there's a lot going on. But fundamentally, yes, crime and cartel should be eliminated. But the reasons, not the reasons, for right reason, eliminate them. But layered on the reasons are political, strategic objectives. This is also to show in some ways that the national government of Brazil is incompetent to handle this matter. A regional government is handling the matter, and the regional government, which happens to be a conservative, right-leaning government, is better positioned versus or vis-a-vis the federal government or the central government, which is Lula socialist.
With that, I would like to thank Robinder Sachdev for joining us and staying with us and sharing with us throughout our news. Thank you. Now we move on to our next news. At least 10 people have been killed in Haiti after Hurricane Melissa unleashed a devastating flood across the Caribbean. In the coastal town of Petit Goâve, the Lac Digue River burst its banks, sweeping away several people as torrential rains continued to pound the area. According to the local officials, including the town's mayor, Bertrand Supreme, and the Director General of a nearby hospital, they have confirmed that more than 10 bodies have been recovered so far, while rescue teams are still searching for those missing. Earlier this week, Hurricane Melissa struck Cuba with Category 4 storm, the second highest level, before making landfall in neighboring Jamaica as the strongest cyclone ever recorded to hit the island nation. The storm continues to move across the region, leaving a trail of destruction and widespread concerns over further flooding and damage. Now we move on to our next news. NVIDIA has made history by becoming the first company to reach a $5 trillion market value. $5 trillion market value, driven by a powerful rally that has solidified its position at the heart of the global artificial intelligence boom. The milestone marks a remarkable transformation for the company, from a niche graphics chip designer to the backbone of the world's AI industry. It has also elevated CEO Jensen Huang into a Silicon Valley icon, while making NVIDIA's cutting-edge chips a focal point in the ongoing tech rivalry between the United States and China. Since the launch of ChatGPT in 2022, NVIDIA's shares have surged 12-fold, fueling a broader AI frenzy that has helped push the S&P 500 to record highs. This latest milestone, achieved just 3 months after NVIDIA crossed the $4 trillion threshold, now places the company's value above the entire cryptocurrency market and roughly equal to half the size of Europe's benchmark equities index, the Stoxx X 600. And that's a wrap on America 360. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.